Kyoko is chosen as the class president since people find that she is kind and popular. As her classmates congratulate her, Tsuyoshi suddenly arrives, covered in injuries. The teacher checks if he's alright before asking him to introduce himself. Kyoko watches him curiously as he's assigned the desk next to hers. As she observes him, Kyoko can't help but notice how his appearance contrasts with his name. Over the next few days, Tsuyoshi keeps showing up with fresh injuries, sparking Kyoko's concern. During lunch, she vents her worries to her classmate Mei, admitting she's extremely curious about what's going on. She wonders if Tsuyoshi is a victim of bullying or even worse, domestic violence. Mei feels suspicious over Kyoko's concern but suggests they follow him after school to uncover the truth. They do just that, trailing him from a distance. Since Tsuyoshi walks normally, Mei assumes nothing dangerous is happening. Kyoko insists they keep watching but gets distracted when she notices Mei's bow is untied. By the time she looks towards him, he's already hit his head on a tree branch. As they continue observing, they notice him bumping into things most people would avoid. They quickly conclude that Tsuyoshi isn't being bullied. The injuries are there because he's just incredibly clumsy. Still, Kyoko can't help but worry even more. Later, the two girls part ways to head home. On her way home, Kyoko notices a little girl with scraped knees and rushes over to check on her. The girl explains tearfully that she fell after almost getting hit by a bike. Kyoko takes out the first aid kit she always carries due to having younger siblings who often get hurt and gently patches the girl up. Once she's sure the girl is fine, Kyoko lets her run off to find her mother. Just then, Tsuyoshi appears nearby. Startled, Kyoko realizes he must have noticed her and Mei following him earlier. Holding his bleeding nose, Tsuyoshi admits he felt someone watching him and decided to follow that presence, only to discover it was Kyoko. She immediately apologizes, confessing that her curiosity and concern pushed her to trail him. Inwardly, she panics, imagining how the entire student body would ridicule her if word spread that she was stalking Tsuyoshi. Certain that he now sees her as a creep, Kyoko braces for the worst, but instead Tsuyoshi gently smiles. He tells her he finds her kindness and worry touching and explains that his countless injuries are simply the result of his clumsiness. He bids her farewell, leaving Kyoko staring blankly into space, stunned that he called her kind. Even when she returns home to her siblings, she's still bewildered. To her, what she did was simply normal. She goes about her routine in an odd daze as she thinks of Tsuyoshi. Before turning off the lights in her siblings' room, she notices that she had caught Tsuyoshi's nosebleed. The next day, Kyoko checks in on Tsuyoshi and learns he made one of his finger injuries worse by jamming it into something. Out of curiosity, she asks if he's ever caught a cold. Tsuyoshi beams as he replies that he's never had one in his life, though he admits he gets injured often. Kyoko thinks it's an odd thing to be proud about, but Kyoko notices fresh blood trickling from his forehead and alerts him. Tsuyoshi realizes it must have been from when he hit a signboard on his way to school. He excuses himself to head to the nurse's office, and Kyoko follows out of worry. On the way, she fails to notice a group of boys about to bump into her. Luckily, Tsuyoshi sees it coming and quickly pulls her toward him. Realizing how close he's holding her, he immediately lets go and apologizes. As he picks up his dropped handkerchief, Tsuyoshi remarks that he doesn't mind getting hurt, as long as the people around him stay safe. He assures her not to worry since he's sturdy enough to take a little pain. But this doesn't ease Kyoko's concern. Later, she confides in Mei, who brushes it off, telling her to focus on more important things like their upcoming tests. Yet, as Mei listens to how much Tsuyoshi occupies Kyoko's thoughts, she comes to the conclusion that Kyoko must have a crush on him. The words make Kyoko freeze as if she's only now realizing her own feelings. The following morning, Tsuyoshi greets her first, and to Kyoko's surprise, he has no new injuries. She studies his face closely, noticing how clear and handsome his features look without being hidden behind bandages. Her cheeks heat up, and out of embarrassment, she suddenly blurts out that their class needs to attend an assembly during first period, and they should line by the hallway. For the rest of the day, Kyoko is in a daze. Even when she returns home, her mind is restless and she ends up unable to sleep a single wink. When she admits this to Mei, her friend is shocked that it took her so long to realize her feelings. Kyoko hurriedly tells her to keep quiet because no one else can know. She can't help but wonder how to act around Tsuyoshi now, especially since she feels shyer every time he's near. As classes begin, Kyoko notices Tsuyoshi is absent and wonders if he might have finally caught a cold. But when he fails to show up for several days, she begins to worry. Even Mei remarks that his absence feels unusual. Kyoko wants to check on him at home, but she doesn't know where he lives or even how to contact him. One afternoon, while returning her class's workbooks to the faculty room, Kyoko finds the teacher too busy on the phone to acknowledge her. As she waits, she overhears the teacher asking about Tsuyoshi, who is apparently in the hospital. When she hears the words truck involvement, the color drains from her face. Panic seizes her and she bolts from school, sprinting straight to the nearest hospital. Out of breath and dragging her feet, she heads to the receptionist to inquire about his room, only to spot Tsuyoshi standing right beside her, sporting even more injuries than usual. They sit together and Tsuyoshi explains that he was nearly hit by a truck, but managed to run fast enough to avoid it. Unfortunately, he couldn't stop in time and ended up crashing straight into a wall. He reassures her that he's only in the hospital for some final medical examinations and that he'll be cleared to return to school tomorrow. Overcome with relief, Kyoko lightly teases him, asking if he managed to injure his usual finger as well. When he confirms it, she bursts out laughing. Tsuyoshi admits he's happy she skipped class just to check on him, causing Kyoko to freeze in realization at her own actions. He then asks if she can give him tomorrow's class schedule since his phone was crushed in the accident and he has no way to contact anyone. Kyoko's shoulders begin to shake with laughter again, leaving Tsuyoshi staring at her with curious eyes. From that day forward, the two steadily grow closer. One morning, Kyoko notices a new bandage on the back of his neck and asks about it. Tsuyoshi sheepishly explains that he simply slept wrong and now has a stiff neck, making it hard to turn his head. Even though Tsuyoshi insists she doesn't need to hold back from talking to him, Kyoko feels guilty, worrying that he only sees her as a seatmate and nothing more. During break, she vents her frustration to Mei. Mei reassures her that she and Tsuyoshi already seem like good friends, but adds that there's still a tall wall between them. The words strike deeper than Mei intended. As Kyoko watches Tsuyoshi cleaning the board, she realizes just how naturally kind and friendly he is to everyone, and realizes that there is a wall preventing them from becoming closer. As Kyoko observes Tsuyoshi throughout the day, she notices he seems to prefer keeping to himself rather than hanging out with others. Standing at the shoe lockers, she feels disheartened, wondering if she can ever break down the invisible wall between them. On her walk home, she spots Tsuyoshi walking a few paces ahead and remembers the sad expression he wore when he spoke of being fine on his own. Over the weekend, Kyoko suddenly declares in front of her siblings and Mei that she wants to become good friends with Tsuyoshi. Mei, however, looks unimpressed as she listens to Kyoko's reasoning. Kyoko explains that she wants Tsuyoshi to feel at ease around her, rather than constantly worrying that she might get hurt. As she wonders how to make that happen, her younger brother Soda tugs too hard on the bag of chips Mei is holding, spilling them all over the room. Mei only gives him a playful knock on the head before turning back to Kyoko, insisting she'll need a proper plan if she wants to get closer to Tsuyoshi. The next day, Kyoko tries their first strategy, eating a bunch of homemade cookies in front of Tsuyoshi, hoping it will tempt him to start a conversation. But before he can even ask for one, their classmates swarm around, begging for cookies. As the class happily digs in, Kyoko prepares to hand Tsuyoshi a bag, hoping this gesture will be the first step to breaking down his wall. But before she gets the chance, Mei urgently tells her that every cookie has already been eaten by their classmates. Mei barely managed to taste one herself, while Haruto happily announced that he ate 2 bags. Kyoko, however, is too preoccupied with her failed plan, silently swearing in her heart that she will find a way to break through Tsuyoshi's wall. She moves on to the next strategy by announcing she forgot her textbook, but in the process he accidentally jams his fingers, earning yet another injury. Though Kyoko continues to try, each attempt to get closer only seems to leave Tsuyoshi more battered. Eventually, she finds herself in an empty staircase, feeling utterly defeated. She begins to think that fate is against her because her presence is only causing Tsuyoshi more injuries. Tsuyoshi notices Kyoko sitting on the stairs and walks over to check if she's alright. Flustered, she quickly composes herself and instead asks about his injuries. Tsuyoshi reassures her that they're all fine. Feeling guilty, Kyoko panics when he turns to leave. Without thinking, she tugs on his uniform collar, accidentally popping off 2 of his buttons. Embarrassed, she hurriedly apologizes for all her unnecessary actions that caused his injuries and now for ruining his uniform. Tsuyoshi feels an odd warmth at her frantic honesty. Though he tries to hold it back, he eventually bursts into laughter, telling her that the buttons popping off were actually a funny surprise. As Kyoko watches him laugh, she notices how sloppily his finger bandages are wrapped, most likely because the nurse wasn't around. An idea sparks and she asks Tsuyoshi to let her treat his injuries instead. Showing him her small first aid kit, she proudly claims she's the best at patching people up. Though surprised, Tsuyoshi agrees and gives his hand to Kyoko. Kyoko carefully rewraps the bandages, making them neat and secure. After being satisfied with her work, she admits she wants to be good friends with him, but wonders aloud what else she can do for him besides tending to his injuries. Tsuyoshi stares at her in shock, and Kyoko realizes too late that her words sounded dangerously close to a confession. Softening, he gently smiles back, saying it feels nice to be cared for so deeply by her. He admits that what he truly wants is a normal high school life, where he can hang out with friends and enjoy after-school activities like everyone else. Moved, Kyoko's eyes well with tears. She declares that they'll live their high school lives to the fullest together. Smiling, Tsuyoshi then adds that her cookies were delicious, leaving Kyoko stunned, since she thought he never got the chance to try them. The next day at school, Mei asks Kyoko if she and Tsuyoshi are already dating. The question startles Kyoko, as they do seem close, but she quickly explains that she's only helping him experience a normal high school life. Neither of them really knows what that means, so they start asking people around school. However, everyone gives different answers, which only makes them more confused. Later, while Mei and Kyoko sit together thinking it over, Kyoko hears Haruto greet Tsuyoshi as he arrives in class. She looks up and notices a flower tucked into Tsuyoshi's shirt pocket. When Haruto points it out, Tsuyoshi is just as surprised as he is, as he had no idea it was there all this time. Mei and Kyoko move closer, intrigued by the strange situation. Tsuyoshi recalls passing by a woman carrying a bouquet on his way to school, so he assumes that the flowers must have come from her. However, when he checks his pants pocket and discovers another flower tucked inside, everyone begins to doubt it was just a coincidence. As Tsuyoshi carefully inspects the flowers, Kyoko can't help but admire the peaceful moment. Tsuyoshi mentions he might plant them, but when he catches Kyoko watching him so intently, he suddenly offers the flowers to her without hesitation. Kyoko freezes and it takes her a moment to respond, but then she enthusiastically snatches the flowers from his hand. Kyoko thinks this will finally be the start of Tsuyoshi's normal high school life, but after taking only a few steps away from her, he suddenly stumbles and falls flat on the floor, scattering his lunch everywhere. They soon learn that he almost never finishes lunch every day because something always happens. Embarrassed, Tsuyoshi admits it's true as he somehow drops it every single time. Finding it hard to believe, Kyoko comes up with an idea. Haruto then asks where Tsuyoshi usually eats since he always disappears during lunchtime. When he brings them to his spot, they're surprised to find a dimly lit, isolated staircase far from other students. Tsuyoshi explains that he eats there to avoid causing trouble for others. Wanting to change that, Kyoko volunteers that they should all eat together there from now on. With that, the three agree to eat lunch with Tsuyoshi, but the sky outside turns gray as they settle down. They share their food while Tsuyoshi eats a sweet bun he bought from the school store. As Kyoko watches him, she thinks this could be the first real step toward a normal high school life. However, when the weather suddenly worsens and the surroundings grow darker, she realizes this situation is anything but normal. They can barely see, so they switch on their flashlights, unintentionally making the scene look like a group of ghosts gathered in a hidden staircase. With the eerie atmosphere, they start telling spooky stories. While excitedly acting out, Haruto bumps into a trash can, which crashes into Tsuyoshi just as he's about to take a bite of his sweet bun. Both Tsuyoshi and his bun end up on the floor, so the next day they decide to just eat in the courtyard instead. They all agree to eat in the courtyard this time. On their way, they pass by some planted flowers, which reminds Tsuyoshi of the ones he gave Kyoko. She explains that they're currently at her house. In the courtyard, they finally enjoy a proper lunch break together. However, just as Tsuyoshi is about to eat the last piece of his hash brown, a crow swoops down and snatches it away, leaving everyone stunned. In the following days, Tsuyoshi's streak of bad luck continues. He keeps getting caught in bizarre accidents, with objects hitting him out of nowhere and causing him nosebleeds. Even the fortune gratin app he uses gives him the worst luck reading, and his hash brown even starts to look sinister. No matter what he does, disaster follows, and Kyoko begins to forget what a normal lunch break feels like. But just as she's bawling, Tsuyoshi steps in and thanks her. He's made up his mind to keep his distance from everyone, believing that his presence only brings misfortune to those around him. Although the others don't see it that way, Tsuyoshi insists that he doesn't want to ruin their peace anymore. Despite their hesitation, he decides to eat alone again the next day. His words make Kyoko tear up, and as he walks away, she suddenly calls out to him, volunteering to cook him lunch starting tomorrow. Everyone is shocked by her sudden declaration, but she insists, saying it would be a waste if he didn't eat it. This is the only way she can think of to make sure Tsuyoshi keeps eating with them. That night at home, Kyoko rummages through recipe books looking for delicious and healthy meal ideas she can try. Sure enough, the next day they return to the staircase for lunch. The packed lunch Kyoko prepared for Tsuyoshi looks amazing, and they also notice the place seems much brighter than before. As it turns out, Kyoko asks the custodian to replace the broken light bulbs so the space feels warm and welcoming again. As they prepare to eat, Haruto reaches out to grab an egg roll from the lunch Kyoko made, but Mei quickly stops him. Instead, Tsuyoshi takes the first bite. Watching him, Kyoko grows nervous about his reaction, but to her surprise, his eyes widen in delight as he's immediately taken aback by how delicious it is. His bright expression only makes Haruto want to taste it even more. However, Mei stops him once again and claims the next bite is for herself, insisting she deserves it because she's Kyoko's best friend. Just like Tsuyoshi, Mei lights up the moment she tastes the food. Haruto grows desperate to try it too, but Mei teases him by running around with the egg roll in her hand, keeping it away from him. The playful chase makes Tsuyoshi burst into laughter. Kyoko pauses for a moment, watching him, realizing this is the first time she's ever seen him laugh so loudly. Even Mei, who was busy earlier, suddenly pauses to watch Kyoko and Tsuyoshi laughing together. She's happy to see her best friend making progress with him. While she's lost in thought, Haruto suddenly takes a bite of the egg roll in her hand. Impressed by Kyoko's cooking, Haruto wants to compliment her, but Mei doesn't want him to interrupt the two, so they end up scrambling playfully. In the process, they accidentally knock over a box full of items down the stairs. Unfortunately, it hits Tsuyoshi, who falls face first onto the floor. Kyoko rushes to his side and calls out to him, but he doesn't get up right away. After a while, Tsuyoshi finally opens his eyes and notices that his lunchbox still has his hash brown intact. Without hesitation, he eats it in one bite. Everyone cheers happily as he finally gets to enjoy his favorite food. He manages to finish lunch, though Kyoko has to bandage him afterward. While bandaging him, Kyoko realizes how small moments like this can make her so happy. She wants to say something more but struggles to find the right words. Finally, she blurts it out. She wants to eat lunch with Tsuyoshi every day from now on. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi smiles brightly. However, blood suddenly starts dripping from his forehead and he faints on the spot. Panicked, they decide to bring him to the nurse. Even unconscious, his face still wears a peaceful smile. That afternoon, they head to art class where they are tasked with drawing each other's faces. Students are paired with their seatmates, which means Kyoko and Tsuyoshi end up together. Just as they're about to begin, Kyoko notices that Tsuyoshi has somehow managed to get himself stuck in the easel already. After a few minutes, they finally free him, though his hands end up slightly injured. Once things settle down, they begin drawing each other, but their constant chatting distracts them. The teacher eventually reminds them to focus, or they'll have to stay longer to finish their work. As time passes, the students begin working on their portraits, with each of them drawing their respective seatmate. Meanwhile, Mei struggles to draw Haruto because he won't stop making silly faces in front of her. But when her gaze shifts to Kyoko and Tsuyoshi, she notices how focused they both are. Neither of them even looks up to see each other's faces. Seeing their concentration motivates her to try harder as well. Hiroko's focus, however, is soon interrupted when Tsuyoshi's easel suddenly collapses. She can't quite understand how that could happen again, but the teacher quickly approaches and reassures him, explaining that the easels are old and probably rotten already. Deep down, Kyoko and Tsuyoshi both know the teacher is just trying to make them feel better, so they simply bow to apologize. To keep going, they decide to use the table instead of the easel. As Kyoko watches Tsuyoshi sharpen his pencil with a cutter, she tries to start a conversation. But before she can say anything, the pencil snaps and the blade slips, giving Tsuyoshi yet another small cut on his finger. After 20 minutes, a few students have already raised their hands to signal they're finished. Mei, however, can't help but notice that Kyoko and Tsuyoshi are the ones left furthest behind, even though they are the ones exerting the most effort. Tsuyoshi keeps muttering quiet apologies and thanks to Kyoko, which flusters her, but she forces herself to focus on her drawing. Still, she can't shake off the thought that she's never been this close to him before. Her gaze lingers on Tsuyoshi as he rests his chin on his hand, still holding the pencil. The scene already makes Kyoko's heart flutter, but then another small disaster strikes as the pencil's tip accidentally pierces the skin on his face, causing it to bleed. Kyoko panics at this, but Tsuyoshi remains calm and simply pulls out a handkerchief to wipe the blood away. For a brief moment, Kyoko admires the scene before her. She beats Tsuyoshi's eyes and he looks back at her. Her heart begins to pound loudly. Then Tsuyoshi simply comments on how long her eyelashes are. He says they look like a kind of defensive mechanism because they protect the eyes from debris, leaving Kyoko both stunned and speechless. Kyoko casually mentions that her long eyelashes are genetic, but soon realizes just how over the moon she is from Tsuyoshi's comment. In that moment, she finally admits to herself that she has a big crush on him, even though he doesn't seem to feel the same way. He can't even properly pin his paper for one. Still, she pushes those thoughts aside and focuses on finishing her drawing. They continue working until time runs out. Before collecting their works, the teacher instructs everyone to show their drawings to each other. Mei's drawing of Haruto turns out terrible, but she defends herself, saying it's because he spent the entire time making silly faces, making it impossible for her to draw him properly. What shocks her, however, is that Haruto's drawing of her is almost a perfect replica. Curious, Mei asks Tsuyoshi and Kyoko if they're finished. She wants to see their drawings, but Kyoko hesitates, worried that her feelings might show through the drawing. But when she finally hands it over, both Mei and Tsuyoshi are stunned, as it looks absolutely nothing like Tsuyoshi at all. With that, they turn to Tsuyoshi to see his drawing. To their surprise, it looks stunning despite the couple of injuries he got while working on it. Everyone is impressed by how skillfully he captured Kyoko's features, and even Kyoko becomes flustered seeing how good she looks in his drawing. Despite her own terrible sketch, Tsuyoshi compliments Kyoko and asks if they can take a picture together with their portraits. Blushing, she agrees. They sit next to each other, holding up their drawings proudly, while Mei snaps a photo of them. It's a simple moment, but it feels special. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss new episodes every week.